What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Good morning. Way too early this morning. 10:15 in the morning. Got a 12:10 start on FanDuel. I thought FanDuel and I liked each other. Turns out we don't. Turns out I like FanDuel and they just don't like me at all, or don't think about me at all when they do these scheduling things. The Twins and Tigers game was pushed up from 1:35 start, normal Sunday, 1:35 traditional start, to a 12:10, and DK just decided to scrap it. So if you're playing on DraftKings, don't put that game in your lineups. FanDuel decided to move the entire slate to a 12:10 start, so here we are. The site, rotoscouts.com, everything is up on the site as usual. What we've got today, I put the typical stack rankings are up. Home run models, the power index is up, home run picks are up, and then I just jammed through a whole bunch of bullet points for instead of the article, since I had to fire this up by like 10:15 to be able to talk this through and still be able to build lineups for a 12:10 start. Something had to give, so I went with some bullet points. I went with like Slate notes, is what I called it. So that's up there where the article usually is. So there's content up on the site, rotoscouts.com, all that fun stuff over there. We've got Travis in the chat. We've got Steven Leibowitz, Fanatic. We've got Power. We've got solid picks. What's going on, gang? Hit that like. Steven Leibowitz says, hit the like, send Terry some coffee. Absolutely. Need it today, bud. I'm only on cup number 2. Today's show brought to you by the National Archives in Washington, D.C. Fantastic museum if you've never been. That is former President Richard Nixon with Elvis Presley. If you don't know the story, in his later years, Elvis, possibly in a haze of pills and drugs, wrote letters to Richard Nixon asking him to join the FBI, telling him he wanted to be an undercover operative to crack down on drugs across the country. So Nixon had him into the White House, and that's where that picture's from. I just love that meeting. Just the idea of this dude in his like sequin suit. Like, look what Elvis is wearing, and look what like. Two just mismatched people. And I know Elvis is like a southern dude, probably was fairly like conservative, probably was a Nixon fan in reality, but just you think of reputation of like, you know, the king of rock and roll and all that stuff that he's supposed to be. He's not really. Let's face facts, he stole most of his songs from black people. I mean, that's what happened with Elvis. So I mean, as much as Elvis was or was not the king of rock and roll, just the image contrasted with meeting with Nixon and wanting to be a drug undercover cop is pretty amusing to me. But anywho, let's see. Could be Travis says, I live in Vancouver, BC. Can you believe there was not one coffee shop open at 7? Had to settle for convenience store coffee. Oof, that's brutal, buddy. How is there nothing at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday? That's shocking that nothing's open. You guys don't have bakeries out there? I'd love to visit Vancouver, by the way. I've heard great things about that city. I've heard it's a blast. I've heard beautiful city and just a great time. And seems like it jibes with my my kind of theme and what I like to get down with. He instilled in me, grew up around the black gospel music being poured in the stuff. Yeah, absolutely, Fanatic. I mean, they were his songs as much as they were their songs and everything, but he's the guy who got all the money for having recorded them, is kind of what I was saying. And whose fault is that? The studio, the record company, Colonel what's-his-face, Colonel Tom, you know, there's all sorts of in and outs. So, yes, it is unfair of me to say that he straight up stole them. That was the music he grew up with, and he was very much a part of, but he's the one that got paid for all those standards, I guess is what I was trying to say. It's just, you know, kind of one way to look at it. But yeah, that's absolutely a fair response to that statement. All right, let's dive in. Let's talk some baseball because we are short on time. We've got an interesting slate. I haven't gotten my usual deep dive. Usually when I do the article, I've got all sorts of time and I'm going through all these recent outings and everything here. But we're gonna go a little bit off the cuff. And we're going to go through it, but I had a chance at least to look at it. I think we've got a deep pitching slate. I think we've got a lot of options on the mound. For the FanDuel slate, you can start off on the top game here. Bailey Ober going up against the Tigers. Not a great pitcher, but a good one. 2.83 ERA, a 4.47 xFIP, not walking anybody really, 23.2% strikeouts. So I think we can get enough out of Bailey Ober here that we can definitely throw him against the Tigers. I don't want to spend too much time on him because it's not on the DK slate. But if we're looking at this first FanDuel game, 35.96 puts him up toward. Yeah, Den, I agree. I said that in the strategy snapshot. This had better be a goddamn good game for them to have moved this entire thing for. And it's probably just gonna end up getting rained on in PPD, and it'll screw up lineups for the lineups I put Bailey over into. Watch. But this one I'm looking it over. I can take some shares of him. 97, it's probably about the right price for this pitcher in this matchup on this slate. You don't play him on DK, obviously, because he's not going to score you any points. Looking at the Tigers side of things, maybe you grab a few hedge Tigers if you're going over the top with Ober, but it's not pretty. I mean, you're looking at like McKinstry, Torkelson, Carpenter, and then maybe some Nick Maton if you're into it, Javi Baez. But it's not a great spot for me in terms of going to the Tigers. I like a few of the lefties against Ober. That's kind of where I would hedge off any Ober shares, but it's mostly Ober. Then on the other side, I think you can grab some Tigers. There's tons of value in the Tigers lineup, or Twins lineup rather. They're not expensive, but you lost Buxton again to an injury last night, so he's not in the lineup today. You're focusing on Eduardo Julien, Donovan Solano, Carlos Correa, Royce Lewis, Kyle Farmer, Willie Castro, Joey Gallo. There's names I like, 1 through 7. Those are all serviceable players, but those are like a lot of good, outside of probably Carlos Correa, who I would still say, despite his struggles this year, is like a first man in terms of talent. A lot of those guys are like third and fourth man in on stacks, and there's not really a lot of good first and second guys. I like Michael Taylor for the odd duck home runs that he hits. He's only got 10 on this, or he's got 10 on the season, but he's been stuck on that 10. He hasn't hit us one of those unowned home runs in a little while, so it's a that would be the one issue. It could be Travis. What's Ober's home run to fly ball ratio? It's probably not tragic given the 20.4 degree average launch angle. That's a lot of fly balls and only a 3.2% home run rate. I can pop it open real quick though. We've got time to check stuff like that as we go here. I want to make good time, but some of those things that I would normally check on, I do want to take time to check. So Ober's home run to fly ball, 8.8 this year, 4.8 last year, 4.8 in AAA in his rehab starts, 4.8 last year. So non-tragic. 2 years ago in 21, it was 16.8. That was problematic. Was that a small sample? So yeah, this season, his fly balls got problematic. His home runs to fly balls, you can see it in the home run rate. Launch angles are the same. The barrel rates are the same. So it's just a matter of like it is some happenstance, right? Like I don't like to say that fly ball pitchers are good at limiting home runs basically ever, because they typically do give up a few, and when they make mistakes, they tend to be loud mistakes. I think that's what you saw more of 2 years ago with Ober, and he's got it under control these last 2 seasons. So not as worried about it, especially not against these Tigers. I'm really like, you get a decent home run mark on Kerry Carpenter, who now that he's back healthy, I think is actually like the best hitter on this team and a fairly effective left-handed major league power hitter. But it's not great. You're going up against the Tigers, so plenty of upside for Ober. He could get dinged. Yeah, I mean, like I started with, he's not a great pitcher. He's a good one. He's an effective pitcher. So minor interest in a couple hedge stacks of the Tigers. Definite interest in Ober. Some interest in the Twins. They're a lowish priority, mid to low priority stack. Even against Lorenzen, it's not like Lorenzen's good. 4 ERA, 4.39 xFIP. Doesn't really strike out many at 18.6. Doesn't get himself into a ton of trouble, but does allow some premium contact. So if I'm targeting a pitcher with bats in this one, it's Lorenzen with the Twins bats, but I don't love the spot, and Vegas wasn't really overly excited about this spot either. Let's take a look. Rangers and the Yanks. Don't think we got lineups yet. Nope, we don't. Let's see what the weather's doing too. I didn't get a chance to check that, and there's red all over Schmabs. I would be going. Like if I had to leave the house right now, I'd definitely be going. It actually looks kind of nice out. Turned into a very nice day yesterday. Let's see what's going on here. Yeah, it looks like a similar report to yesterday where it's just like some pop-up afternoon thunderstorms probable, but we can't really forecast any kind of postponement, delay, etc. So I think we're fine in New York. Probably same for Philly. We'll talk about the others when we get there. Doesn't look like anything's tragic. Like Baltimore seems fine. Baltimore, New York, Philly is all basically the same forecast. Like could get a little bit wet, but probably going to play. Seems fine. Everywhere else seems okay. and of course, Roth's forecast for that Minnesota-Detroit game that they moved up is, it looks like the game would have been fine regardless, but I still will probably the proactive approach that completely screwed up my morning. So different take, Roth, different take. But he thinks it would have been fine either way. All right, so Rangers and Yanks. Interesting one with the pitching. Obviously, Cole's been a little bit up and down this season. It shows in his projection a little bit. 10-7, he's projected below 30 in the FanDuel scoring. The one I'm more concerned with, though, like I think Cole's just Cole. He'll work it out. The strikeouts are a little bit on their trending back up for him over the last couple, if I remember correctly. I'm not looking at the game log, but 26-6, I think that was like 25, like 2 starts ago. So a couple more strikeouts. probably on the way back overall, and hasn't really been bad. He just makes those big mistakes, gives up a couple home runs. The home runs haven't even been really a problem this year. 2.26% home run rate, 3.84 on the xFIP, 2.64 on the ERA. The swinging strikes are down, the strikeouts are down, but overall, still giving you pretty good games most of the times out. It's just a brutal matchup against the Rangers, and he's priced not like Garrett Cole, not over 11, but 10-7 is still pretty damn close to 11. So we're really not getting the struggles baked into the price or the matchup or the ballpark. I don't love the spot for Cole. I do think he's got the probably highest ceiling of the day, as he usually would against any team on any given slate, but it's not pretty, and you're paying a lot for him. The pitcher on the other side, Nate Eovaldi, kind of problematic here. Came out of his last start early, wasn't displaying arm like any visible issues, but he's lost velo in each of his last 4 starts. And they're just kind of running him right back in his regular turn in the rotation. He didn't want to come out of that game the other day when they hooked him, but to do that, to see obvious signs of a decline in velocity, those are really strong indicators that something might be up here. So I'm a little concerned about Nate Eovaldi. It might not go through in terms of coming out of the game early, but maybe he's not as effective as he's been all season. I don't love it here. It's a weak version of the Yankees lineup, whatever he gets, because there's no Aaron Judge in it. And there's definite upside, but I'm really concerned. 10-4, 10-6, that's a big spend for a pitcher who, if he's limited, if he comes out after 5, if they're managing him, whatever happens, like that becomes a concern. He's pitching really well all season. He was pitching really deep into every game, which maybe is why he's a little bit worn down now. So I'm not sure what's up with Eovaldi, but 99 and 2/3 in 15 starts, 24.9% strikeouts, 5.4% on the walks. He's been great all season long. Good matchup. If you're inclined to play him, if you're not worried about the injury, if you've got a better read on it than I do, feel free. But I'm a little concerned. I would have less of them than normal, and I'm not sure how much I get to on what I think is a deep pitching slate. Going to some Yanks, you can. They're very cheap for who they are. Harrison Bader remains the highest priced player in this lineup on FanDuel. He's down to 33,000 after being that at 31 yesterday. Glaber on DK at 57, by far the highest priced player. 48 for Stanton is the next highest, and everybody else below 4. Very, very cheap Yankees lineup, but not a great version of it. You can certainly go to Glaber, Bader, Rizzo, Stanton, Donaldson. That's not a terrible core of hitters with major league power. Obviously, long track records of success. Rizzo, I think, is on the way back after a long slump after he got banged up at first base. So, like Rizzo and Torres, I believe in. Stanton, obviously, we believe in all that power. There's plenty of upside for Pop with Giancarlo Stanton. He's just been struggling. He's trying to hit the ball to Mars every time up at the plate, and he doesn't have his timing right now. So that's why he's so cheap. That's why he hasn't been producing. But I think I can mix in some Stanton. I'll mix in some Bowers and McKinney off the top of the lineup as well. They're both playing well right now. Neither one is a good player, but they're both playing well right now. Stephen Leibowitz, yeah, they just discovered Judge has a torn leg. Just decided to tell us, whatever the case may be. Yeah, not a good situation with Judge's toe, and I just don't like the dishonesty. Just like, if he's going to be out for 6-8 weeks, just tell me right off the gate that he's going to be out. Like, they knew that. I knew that. I said it on a show. Like, he's going to be out a while. Like, just tell us. Why dick around with it? Because they want to sell tickets, probably. Solid picks. No, I'm not with Stochastic. I haven't been through. It's been about a year since I parted ways behind the scenes on like the running customer support over there full-time role. And then I was doing content as like freelance up until like the start of this baseball season, basically. Started my own thing at the start of this baseball season just because. And was still doing stuff with them, and then just recently kind of parted ways. So not with those guys anymore, but wish them well. No hard feelings on this end. Fanatics, I think it'll be probably into well into July. Obviously, at this point, probably through July. It's not going to be pretty. What else is going on in the chat? Jake Swales in the chat. Could be Travis. We talked to Travis a minute ago. Solid picks. Got everybody basically here. The 50 people that are able to read in Detroit are probably not even baseball fans. Wow, Dan. Dan is taking some shots up early this morning. Never been to Detroit. Out of all the cities that I randomly have traveled to for like work and weddings and shit like that, never made it to Detroit. I wouldn't mind it. I heard it's come back and it's got very nice little areas and a pretty cool restaurant scene and stuff. So I'd like to check it out one day. Meet RoboCop. All right. Rangers side of things. 1 through 9, basically regardless. Like if you get the Grossman Jankowski versions of this lineup, you can include them and mix and match shares. But everybody from the Semien, Seager, Lowe, Garcia, Young, Heim, Garver, Duran, Taveras, all of those guys in play basically every day. All of those guys well above average for run creation. All of those guys have power. A lot of those guys have speed. It's a DFS dream of a team. I mean, this is a great, great team to roster for DFS. They're not even that expensive. We talked about it yesterday a little bit. Like all these low prices help offset these two prices on DK. This third high price on DK. All these low prices on FanDuel, it just averages down those star prices. So it really doesn't matter. So I'm going to definitely look to roster some Rangers, but I don't think it's a spot you get carried away with. It is still Garrett Cole on the mound. Even if he gives up a home run, it's likely to be one of those games where, all right, he gave up a 3-run homer, but that's all the damage that happened, and there's a lot of zeros in the rest of that Rangers stack. So probably not a high-end stack. They could get there. They could get into the bullpen and get like a Wandy Peralta or somebody like that who's been, largely effective this year, but they could get to a bullpen arm. So there's upside for the Rangers, but limited doses, fewer shares of Yankees. So for me, it's probably Cole, Rangers, Yankees, Eovaldi, which is weird because I would have had Eovaldi on top of that, 4 starts ago. I'm just really concerned about the short start. Anthony T says we have to do a show with Gunn and Rinpack. Is Rinpack a free agent these days? I haven't talked to Rinpack in a while. I don't talk to a lot of the people. Like I knew everybody basically through Stochastic. I'm just not good at. I've never been a follows everybody, talks on social media, is involved with the industry and knows everybody kind of a person like Emac. His Emac knows basically everybody who's been around in the industry. And you bring up a name, and to me, it's a screen name that I would never think about what the actual person is. And Emac is, oh yeah, nice guy, yeah, him and his wife, and so it's interesting. But, if Rinpack's available and a free agent and wants to, I would be into that. I like Rinpack quite a bit, and I think he's a very smart guy. Same with anybody. Like, I'm always into doing co-shows and stuff. Gunn and I have done a few. I assume you saw them, Anthony T. Gunn and I have done a few. We're going to hopefully do one tomorrow. I got to ping him. I'll try and remember later on to ping him and see what we can set up. Rangers lineup is in. It is that version with Grossman in the 7 spot. And so you got Heim, no Garver, Grossman in the 7 spot. I think it's basically what was showing on the screen there. Yanks lineup is in. All right, it's not into Schmabs yet, so we'll wait on that. Anything weird? We won't wait on it because I don't want to sit here just staring at this game and talking about Rinpack and Gunn, much as I like those guys. So let's, we'll move on. Mariners and the O's. Got another Mariners pitcher showing a decent projection. Got burnt by Bryce yesterday. I had probably more of them than you had, so that hurt me. Definitely wasn't happy with that performance. Thought he was going to put up a decent start. He was projecting like it. First inning kind of looked like it, and just gave up a long ball to Santander. Just didn't quite get there for us. So missed it on Bryce, but coming back with George Kirby, I like the spot just as much. He projects similarly to what we were getting for the two pitchers the last couple days. I think the price on DK is very good here. 8,200. That's a low price for George Kirby. Even with the Orioles, even with Cedric Mullins back, even if you get a good version, a good day for the Orioles, that's just a fair price for a pitcher who's pretty good. He's not a major strikeout pitcher. 21.4% this year, 9.2 swingings, 27.6% CSW. Was better for strikeouts last year on basically a similar swinging strike rate and actually fewer overall strikes. So it's kind of a weird piece of happenstance that his strikeout rate is lower on the whole. I expect over time, if this holds, this is going to go back toward this kind of territory. Toward mid-20s kind of territory instead of low 20s territory. But even at 21.4, I think he's effective enough. And what I love about Kirby is he never, ever gets himself in trouble. A 1.7% walk rate. Just another one of these guys that just focuses on not putting guys on, issuing free passes. And it really works for them. 3.29 ERA, 3.53 xFIP, doesn't really give up much power to speak of, 7.5% barrels, 39.9% on the hard hits, only 2.56% home runs. So really like the spot here for Kirby, particularly at that DK price. FanDuel price is fine. It's a little bit high compared to some of the other guys, but I expect this again is just going to be effective in keeping most of the public away. So I'll probably get George Kirby in low single-digit ownership. hopefully we get there. I'm going to definitely take shots. Maybe I don't get too carried away with it because there are some good pitching spots here, but he's definitely on the board for me. Kyle Bradish on the other side, with all the strikeouts in the Mariners lineup, at 61, 64, it's more of a DKSP2 play, but I think there's maybe a little bit of value there for Kyle Bradish. 22% strikeouts on the year, 6.6% walks isn't bad. Gives up a little bit of premium contact at 44.5% hard hits, 90.8 miles an hour average exit velo, but only 2.2% home runs. Hasn't killed him. Launch angle's fine. XFIP and ERA are good, 3.88, 4.0 for a young pitcher. I don't mind that at all. So it doesn't project great. He doesn't project for a big innings total in my model here. But given the fact that this lineup has a 26% strikeout rate in the projected version, and all of their key hitters are in the high 20s to 30% range, I think maybe Bradish can give you 5-6 clean and a handful of strikeouts, or 5-6 innings of 2 to 3 run ball and a handful of strikeouts. And at that price, especially on DK, that's probably got a little value there. It's not great. You're not talking about an ace by any means. No Rushman in the lineup. All right. So did I have that one in here? I thought I'd put that in. Oh yeah, I just didn't look at it. So yeah, Mullins back, no Rushman, Gunnar hitting third. Diminished version of the Orioles lineup with no Rushman. Tanner Banks for the White Sox today. That was a question mark, by the way. I believe that's just a reliever in an opener situation. We'll get there. The Orioles lineup bit downgraded with no Mountcastle and no Rushman. Mountcastle still hurt, but Mullins back, obviously a nice addition there. You can grab some hedge stacks of the Orioles. I would go like 1 through 5, and then mix and match from the bottom if you're looking to mix and match in the Hickses and Fraziers and Mateos and Ben Booms of the world. But really, you want to live from 1 through 5 with this lineup. Mullins, Santander, and Henderson as your primaries. Austin Hayes, then O'Hearn, then Hicks, probably, if I'm ranking the top 6 there. But it's a decent, effective top 6. There's plenty of power. There's some speed. There's good on-base skills. A lot of on-base skills. That's a focus organizationally for this team, is drawing walks, getting on base, and they're quite good at it. So top end for the Orioles, definitely some George Kirby, Kyle Bradish for value, and then some of the Mariners. You can grab some of those Mariners power bats, the Julio Rodriguez, Teoscar Hernandez, Jared Kelenic core there, maybe some Ty France as a bolt-on with a good hit tool, a little bit of power, some correlated scoring ability, J.P. Crawford off the top with correlated scoring, Eugenio and Cal Raleigh and all their power. Mike Ford hit his 6th home run in 47 plate appearances. Was that yesterday? I think it was yesterday. Still at the dead minimum, 2,100 on FanDuel. It's not the biggest sacrifice in the world to skip Ty France for Mike Ford. You definitely get power. So he's not a good player, but there's upside for power there. So it's a weird Mariners lineup with a lot of flaws and a lot of holes. But I think you can play them against Kyle Bradish, especially if you're rostering some Kyle Bradish as a value play. If you get a little carried away with it, definitely grab a few hedge stacks of Mariners. They're easy to buy too. They're cheap on both sites. Outside of Julio, and Julio's cheap for his talent. Outside of him, everybody's just flat cheap in this lineup. So there's a lot of talent in that lineup for fair prices. Mets and the Phils. Let's see what's in the chat. Fanatic, KC lineup out. Melendez in the 4 spot. Prado leading off. Okay, yep, that's about what I had. But KC coming out with a weak back end. That lineup is very weak on the bottom half, bottom third, pretty much day to day. And I think it's one we're going to target today. We'll get there. So the Mets, the Phils, Zach Wheeler on the bump from the Phillies. One of my higher projected pitchers, 95, cheap price on DK for his talents, 10-5, perfectly fine for him on the FanDuel slate, 26.6% strikeouts, 88 innings and 15 starts, 3.48 on the ERA, 3.68 on the XFIP, limits home runs, limits power and barrels, very good at keeping the ball in the yard. The launch angle's up a little bit, but 4.5% barrels, 1.36% home runs, hard to square up, 36.5% hard hits, 86.6 miles an hour average exit velo, just very, very difficult to connect with squarely. So I like Wheeler here. I like him to limit the Mets offense. Maybe not a slate winning score out of them, given the Mets are a somewhat competitive team, but they're going to need to string together hits. They're going to need to sequence against him. He's very difficult to homer off if you can see it. And even Pete Alonso cut down to a 7.41, which against Wheeler is a fairly high number. He keeps most people in like this very human range below 5. Francisco Lindor below 5. 14 home runs, a 215 ISO. Star caliber player. I think you can take a few shots with the Mets. Not many. It's limited. They're a limited lineup. They're a top-heavy lineup. Nimmo, Marte, Lindor, and Alonso is really what you like about this lineup. Maybe some Tommy Pham. Like, they've got veteran quality in these three guys, but Vogelback hasn't been good this year. McNeil's hit tool isn't really working for him because the ball's not dropping in for BABIP for him. That's really what he thrives on, is just batting average on balls in play. Alvarez and Brett Beatty at the bottom of the lineup, two premium rookies. I'm almost inclined to, kind of forego some of these guys for these more shares of these guys if I was building a ton of Met stacks, but I won't be. I just think that Wheeler is a limiting factor in getting to Mets, and that showed through in the Vegas total. They weren't pulling a high total. The Phillies were pulling a 5+ total. I think this is a great spot for the Phils. Carrasco's been struggling badly this year. 6.34 in the ERA, 5.47 on the xFIP, 14.1% strikeouts, 10.6% walks. There's just not a lot on the bone for Carrasco right now. It was a nice story, beating cancer, coming back, making it back to the show. He's had a couple good starts this year, for at least for DFS points, but no big start. No, you needed it type start, and he's had a lot more clunkers than he's had good ones, just not pitching effectively. Kyle Schwarber's my home run pick of the day at 12 in the home run model. One of the higher ranked plays, not the very top of the board, but one of the top end plays. Major power 20 on the season, 15.3% barrels, 46.6% hard hits. Nothing not to like about Schwarb's. Turner's struggling. It's priced into the FanDuel price. Maybe not priced into the DK price, but I think we just take a slight discount on DK on Trey Turner if we're going to Phillies. And I think we want to go to Phillies quite a bit. Nick Castellanos, cannot figure out why he's still only 42. He's been their best player all season. 317, 362, 497, a 131 WRC plus, 9 home runs, 5 stolen bases. Kind of like what I was saying about Eddie Rosario the other day. Not a player that this line in any way is at all surprising if you watched any of Nick Castellanos' career before last year when he struggled. Eddie Rosario, same thing, had multiple seasons of mid-20s to 30 home runs a few years ago, hit 2 bumpy years with injuries and stuff, and then was like everybody forgot how good he is and is surprised that he's doing as well as he is. It's kind of the same with Castellanos. I don't get why he's only 42 here. Take advantage. That's a big discount on the DK slate. It helps you pay for these 5s. Like, in no universe should Castellanos be more than JT or less, that much less than JT Realmuto right now. Not that Realmuto's been bad, but Realmuto 252, 311, 467, 105 WRC plus, 8 homers, 10 steals. Yeah, he's a catcher. There's a ton of value in getting those numbers from a catcher, particularly where you need them. But those numbers are, a shade of what these numbers are. There's just a little strange pricing there. So I love grabbing some Castellanos. Bryce Harper, tons of upside, obviously. Not really hitting for power yet since his comeback. Only 3 home runs, a 115 ISO. 117 on the WRC plus, getting involved in other ways though. So just go to Harper. Stott, Bohm, Marsh, Clemens on the bottom end. Gotta love the bottom end of this lineup too. They're great mix and match pieces. All of those guys from the bottom half of this lineup. So really like going to the Phils for depth. You can stretch out quality up and down that lineup, and I think it's a great matchup. So for me, this one's Phillies bats and Zach Wheeler probably tied for the top spot, and then minor shares of Met stacks against Wheeler. No interest in Carrasco. Oh, boy. Somebody in the chat mentioned that Kikuchi was in their player pool. I don't think that's a mistake. I do think that Kikuchi should be in your player pool. Kikuchi will be in my player pool, even at 8,800 on FanDuel. This is why I'm reluctant with Kikuchi. This guy is a target for me on almost every slate. Every time he pitches, I'm throwing bats at him. I'll grab some A's bats on the other side of this one. It's the home runs, and that's a consistently bad trait for him over the course of time. 5.86% home run rate this year on 11.2% barrels, 44.4% hard hits. Last year, 507 on 14.8, 91.2 miles an hour average exit velo, 47% hard hits. Year before, 4.05 home runs, 47% hard hits, 11% barrels. So technically, his barrel rates come down. His hard hit rates come down. Those are still atrocious marks, though. So just filthy for premium contact and home runs, but does have strikeout acumen. Manages to control run scoring in other ways. So only a 7.1% walk rate this year is effective, a 4.12 xFIP. There is some minor potential in Kikuchi, but for every share of Kikuchi I have, I'll probably grab a hedge stack of Athletics in a different lineup just because I do not believe. That said, I don't really believe in this Athletics team, and the only bats I like on this team are the lefties. So I don't love throwing the lefties at the lefty. If I'm grabbing Athletics, though, it's probably some Ruiz off the top for his speed. He can probably get on base, well, he doesn't draw many walks, but if he gets on base, he's running against his pitcher. Alemis Diaz for his veteran quality at 2,100 with multi-position on FanDuel, fine. Noda, you're hoping for some on base and correlated scoring, maybe a home run against the bullpen for the lefty. Seth Brown hits from the left side, tons of power and stolen base upside. And then Brent Rooker. Obviously, we're getting a home run mark out of Brent Rooker. He's cheap, 31.28, perfectly fine to play him in this spot. Don't like the player still, but I like him at price in matchup with the home run potential. Hasn't hit one in quite a while. It's a little bit problematic. Don't love going to him, but the price is fine. So I think you can go to Brooker there. You can book some Brent Rooker. How about that? Jonah Bride, dead minimum, fine. Shea Langoliers, kind of sneaky. He was my home run pick from the Athletics today. 8.40. If he's in the lineup as a cheap late lineup catcher, I think you can go there. Gun! What's going on, Gun? Morning, bud. Wrong YouTube account. That's all right. Give me a like from this one and switch accounts, buddy. Hit the old subscribe. Hit the like. Make sure you do that on Gun shows. Gun, let's connect later on and figure out we're going to go tomorrow, right? Just regular, I assume, afternoon show for what should be a normal slate. But if there's a curveball in there, let's figure it out. Yeah, Larry Gun's on one of his burners. Yep. He's got a lot of them from what I hear. So no shares of Luis Medina on the mound. That is a big-time target for Blue Jays bats for me. I think the world is probably going to be going to Blue Jays when they're not going to Braves or Reds or some of these other spots. This will be a popular team today for every reason in the world. Medina, 5.13% home runs, 45.5% hard hits, 90-plus miles an hour exit velo, 4.62 on the xFIP, doesn't really strike too many out at 21%, walks too many at 9.7. Lot of reasons to throw bats at Luis Medina here. They're expensive, but justifiably so. You get the offset for price with Brandon Belt on the left side if he's hitting third here. Springer, Bichette, Vladdy are all stars. They're probably at least one or two of those guys is going to be an all-star. Belt, Chapman, major veteran power from either side of the plate, lefty and a righty. Chapman price is hovering back up toward 5,000, kind of floating back up a little bit on the DK slate. 10 home runs, the premium contact's been there all season. 3,100 on FanDuel at third base, still fairly affordable over there. Merrifield, stolen bases, hit tool. Varsho, a little bit of sneaky power late in the lineup for cheap, low owned. Kiermaier, Heineman are mix and match pieces. Same with anybody who's bottom of the lineup here, kind of mix and match value from the bottom for Toronto. Gunn says he's game for tomorrow, usually 3 Eastern time. Yeah, I haven't checked the schedule either, but yeah, assuming normal Monday, 3 p.m. should be a plan. What happened to Shea Langolier's power from last year? He's got power this year, Trev. 9 home runs and 258 plate appearances. He's not making as much regular contact, but the barrels are actually up. The hard hits are down, but only by 0.2 of a percentage point. 9 home runs and 258. What did he hit last year? Wait, am I looking at the right line? Yeah, last year he was 6 in 153. I feel like we're on track. Let's see what else we got. So, yeah, Blue Jays top to bottom. Priority stack for me against Medina here. There's a couple priority stacks, so it'll be interesting to see how ownership falls around them. And I think you can play the ownership game with them in, like, I'm going to take the, not fade by any means, but, like, I'll forego a couple shares of probably the Braves to go to some combination stacks of, like, Blue Jays and one of the other, like, Blue Jays and Phillies, and just put those two teams together in some lineups. I think we'll get a little bit of value there. Athletics, I talked about. So, yeah, very light interest in Kikuchi. Enthusiastic about the Blue Jays bats. Limited interest in Kikuchi, but I think there's upside there. Limited interest in the A's, but I think there's upside in throwing some of their bats at the home runs that Kikuchi allows. Yeah, Vladdy just hit it first home run at home this weekend. Yeah, that's a weird result because they were expecting his power to go up with those park changes they made. He's had a weird season for results. I've talked about it a bunch of times. Only 11 homers, a 168 ISO on the season. That's a little bit behind curve in the home run department, and it's well behind in terms of his ISO, but the contact is still there. The barrels are up by 2 percentage points. Hard hits up by 6 percentage points. This should turn into more home runs and more ISO. It just hasn't. It's weird. Brew Crew, Guardians, 1052. We got to hit the gas pedal a little bit, gang. A couple of good pitchers, obviously, in different types of pitchers. Savali's basically been himself this year. 20% on the strikeouts, 2.67 on the ERA. The xFIP is the more telling number at 4.41. He's around a league average-ish pitcher, a little bit better, a little bit more talent, I think, than league average on the whole. Keeps runs down, keeps home runs down, keeps the ball in the yard fairly effectively. So I think Savali against this Brewers team, they're a good team. There's plenty of power in this lineup, especially now that they've got Adames and Urias back in the lineup. But there's a ton of strikeouts in this lineup. So I think Savali's got a little bit of upside at price for clean innings, 5-6 clean innings, shot at a win, shot at a quality start, handful of strikeouts with a little bit beyond his normal 1 in 5 strikeouts. I think there's a little bit of meat on the bone, particularly at price, particularly as an SP2 on DK for 77. That's a good price for this pitcher. He's a talented guy. We've succeeded with Savali in the past, and I think we'll continue to. He's never really that highly owned. I can't imagine he would be in this spot. I do like the Brewers, though. I think there's good reason to go with the Brewers. I just remembered that I actually switched the home run pick from Schwarber to Rowdy Tellez at the last minute. So Rowdy's actually my home run pick for the day at 13.93, but I do still love that Schwarber spot. So you get a 2 for there. Christian Yelich, Willy Adames, Rowdy Tellez, Luis Urias. Those are my key bats from the Brewers. And then I can mix in minor shares of struggling Jesse Winker, some Brian Anderson, some Raimel Tapia for a little bit of low-end power and a little bit of speed, but he doesn't get on base nearly enough, doesn't really create runs. Caratini, maybe as a cheapo catcher with the idea of connecting for a home run from time to time when he's in the lineup as a backup. And then hunting for counting stats with Joey Weimer. 10 homers, 10 stolen bases on the season. Very cheap, never popular. So you can mix and match your way through the Brewers lineup. You can definitely get some upside against Savali there. There's a little bit of contact going to be allowed. He walks a few too many this year at 9.2%. So a little bit of a both-sided situation there for me. Probably about a tie. I'll probably have about the same amount, respectively, as of Brewers as I would of Savali. I just like more pitchers, I think, than I do overall stacks. So Brewers, to get different, I think it's a good spot, as a differentiator spot. Probably not going to be all that popular. Fairly cheap, so it's easy to put them together with one of the premium teams. So they gain a little traction from that, I think, in terms of their value pricing. The Guardians, I don't really want to roster. Corbin Burns. If we can avoid that terrible first inning, that burnt us the last time out, but I think I'm going right back to him. He's been struggling. The velo's been down. The whiffs are down. The strikeouts are way down. 23.5% strikeouts is just not Burns-like at all. 12.1% swinging is still a good number, but it's just not a Corbin Burns number. 29.5% CSW, same story. 3.96 on the ERA, 4.11 on the xFIP. The rumors of his demise are greater than the actual demise, but it hasn't been great. He certainly hasn't been reliable. It's priced in, 91, 99. Against this terrible Guardians team, he should be more expensive than that. We know that they don't strike out much, so maybe he's got the 6-7 clean innings, 4-5 strikeouts type of a performance here. I think it's okay at price. I'm just not going to get carried away with it. So yes to Corbin Burns, but I'm going to temper expectations and I'm probably going to temper exposures. If I see the field at a really low single-digit number, I might grab a few more shares. Really depends on where the field's going to be. I can't expect that he's going to be super popular, though. The price is definitely right. The price should encourage popularity, particularly on DK. But I just don't trust it right now. Larry asks about his velo. I wrote about it a couple of weeks ago. Let me see where he's at now. Hopping over to Savant and the old StatCast board here, which is a fantastic tool. If you guys don't use it, it's where all this info comes from in terms of the pitch mix, the spin rates, velocities, all that stuff. Not down terribly. 95 last year on the cutter, 94.3 this year. Throwing it slightly less, 55% last year, 53.5% this year. Throwing the curve a little less, throwing the change a little bit more. Just lost a ton of whiff. The whiff on the changeup is down from 46.7 to 32.6. Whiff on the curveball is down from 47.7 to 41.4. Cutter 27.8 to 24.9. He didn't really lose spin. The spin's fine. The spin's the same. Velo is roughly the same. The curveball velo is... He's throwing the curve slower, but I don't really care as long as it's spinning the same. I guess maybe that's why the whiffs aren't there as much. The change is 90.3 miles an hour, down by a mile an hour. But that's, in line with the dip of 0.7 miles an hour in his fastball. That kind of makes sense. The slider's been dead. Not throwing the slider much. 7.7% slider usage, down from, it was only 9.2 last year, but it was an effective pitch. 49.7% whiffs on the slider last year, 27.5% put away, down to 36.7%, 24.5% on the put aways, and only using it 7.7% of the time. Throwing his sinker a little bit more. Yeah, I can't really put my finger on it just looking at the numbers. The slugging versus the X slugging isn't atrocious. A lot of slug on the, a lot of hard hits on the sinker. I feel like maybe he shouldn't be throwing that sinker quite as much as he is. Not sure. Not quite sure what's going on. I feel like if it was that obvious, he'd probably be fixing it. They know better than I do. But if you look at, and I know you guys can't see what I'm looking at here, so it's kind of boring, but if you look on StatCast at his percentile rankings, we're still talking about 90th ranked exit velocity, 99th percentile fastball spin, 83rd percentile curveball spin, 65th percentile chase, 64th percentile velo, 53rd percentile strikeout percentage is where it falls apart for him. But a lot of this stuff is still okay. Just weird returns for Corbin Burnes. But I think you can get him. I think if he's low owned, you can get him a little bit more. Let's keep on trucking here. So only minor shares of the Guardians, if any, kind of as a hedge. Stephen Kwan, fine if you want to grab a correlated scorer who's not scoring or correlating. Rosario, Jimenez, fine. Same story with those two guys. Really, Ramirez, Naylor, and Bell are the key bats here in this lineup for me right now. Maybe those guys as a three-man against some Corbin Burnes, but there's not a lot to like in this Guardians lineup right now. Brewers we talked about. So both pitchers, moderate doses of Burnes, whatever exposure to Savali for value. And definitely some Brewers bats. I like the value and the power upside for the Brewers bats. Not that Savali's lousy for power. Game of the day. Basically playing this one on the moon in 0G. Massive upside for the Braves. My home run pick for the Braves was everyone. And then I crossed it out and picked Marcell Ozuna. But you can see the massive return to form after we saw them checked a little bit by Graham Ashcraft's ability to limit home runs over time somewhat. And we saw them go out and hit, I think, 3 home runs yesterday. So this wasn't the 25-run game that we had in Coors Field yesterday, but this is definitely Coors-like, and Levi Stout, I think, is definitely in some trouble here. You can throw Braves bats at him all day. It's the good version of the lineup. We get Sean Murphy back in the lineup, so you got to love that. Acuna, Albies, Riley, Olsen, Murphy, Ozuna, Rosario, Arcia, and Harris. Yes to every single one of those players. Yes to every single combination of those players. Top end, bottom end. You can stack the bottom 4 as a stack. You can stack the top 4 as a stack. You can mix and match them. You can wrap Arcia and Harris around to the top of the lineup. It's the best lineup in baseball. It's the top DFS lineup to use. They're not all that expensive. Arguably, the one thing they lack on DK anyway is positional flexibility. But you can kind of deal with it because they just run straight positions. Like, there's no real overlap. I guess you've got 4 outfielders to deal with, but that's a good problem to have. The dynamite positional flexibility from Orlando Arcia rolls on. I retweeted somebody from the rotoscouts Twitter handle yesterday, at rotoscouts, by the way. Follow it if you're not. We need some followers. We need some retweets and some likes on those things when the shows go out, too. Help me out. But I retweeted from that. Somebody sent out, and it was just like a salary, like, this shortstop makes this shortstop makes that. And it was just like Carlos Correa, Dansby Swanson, Trey Turner, all these like super premium shortstops and their salaries. And then it ended with Orlando Arcia leading the way across all of them statistically, leading the way by wins above replacement, and making like, $7 million or whatever compared to like 25. Just dynamite ball player. 214 plate appearances has been great. Love him for DFS though. 3,100, 3 position eligibility on FanDuel. Gotta love that. The Reds on the other side facing, Banks. I think Banks is just a straight opener. Opening for Tukey. That would be interesting. I don't think I would go to either side of it. We can Google that in a sec. Charlie is interesting here. 9,300, 9,800. He projects fairly well. He's Charlie Morton. I'm not worried about Charlie going up against this team. I don't love the ballpark, obviously, the conditions. But Charlie Morton has a lot of trust in terms of Just could he go out there and pitch a good game, pitch a Charlie Morton game? Yeah, he absolutely could. I know these Reds have been good. I know they've been streaking. I like this lineup for DFS purposes, at least from 1 through 6, and I will roster them against Charlie here, but I think he could probably get away with some low-owned Charlie. 9,300, 9,800, the price is right for the situation. 26.2% on the strikeouts, 2.54% on the home runs, 3.71 ERA, 3.95 xFIP, 13.1% swinging, 31.5% CSW. There's plenty of strikeouts available for him here. I think Charlie could give you a sneaky good game. It's not one to get carried away with just because of the conditions and honestly how well this Reds team is playing right now and how talented some of these kids are. So it's not one where I'm going to roster 25% Charlie, but I think there's upside for a handful of shares that probably not many will go to. So for me, Braves bats, big yes. Don't care that they're going to be the most popular team on the slate. You can mix and match them in different ways. The bottom end's always lower on than the top end. It's just as good. It's just as effective. So enthusiasm about the Braves, even at popularity. Some shares of Charlie Morton. And then enthusiasm about the Reds, at least from TJ Friedl, Matt McClain, Spencer Steer, Ellie, Jake Fraley, Joey Votto. That 6-man is pretty damn good. There's some lefty power there. There's some upside for superstardom with Ellie De La Cruz. There's some very good performance over the course of this season with Spencer Steer on the right side, multi-position eligible Spencer Steer, 5,000, 3,200, good price for him. McClain, second base and shortstop on DK is a luxury at 4,900. Good player for that price, that positional flexibility. McClain, 309, 367, 493. A lot less heralded than Ellie, but playing really, really well since he came up, was playing really well in the minors before the call-up. So I like getting the Reds here. It's not a super, deep take, kind of obvious. Braves, Reds, bats. Maybe some Charlie. Maybe that's where we get a little sneaky in this one. 3 games to go. Somebody was saying we have the lineup here. I don't think it is anything crazy. Yeah, we've got most of these lineups, by the way, guys. This is a particularly weak back end from the Royals. So I'll drop it in here. Let's go Royals. And we'll grab the Rays, since the Rays lineup is always all over the place and is always so playable and good. And it looks good today. So we'll talk about the actual lineups in place. So Tyler Glasnow, monster projection for Glasnow. I actually cut his innings down a little bit to show you what I'm showing you. The model got a little carried away with how many innings I thought Tyler Glasnow was going to throw today. So I had to get in there and put the thumb on the scale a little bit. I think this is a realistic number. 89, too cheap for Tyler Glasnow strikeout upside against this lineup. 30.3% over 25 and a third this year, 11.9% on the walks. The walks are always going to be ugly with Glasnow. You just kind of accept it. 3.52 xFIP, 4.97 on the ERA, has given up a little bit of pop. 19% on the barrels is ugly. 49.2% hard hits, ugly. 4.59% home runs, ugly. Small sample, 25 and a third, five starts. I don't know how much depth I really expect. It's probably a 5-6 at the most inning kind of a start, but I think we can get a big number from him in that. If he hits the quality start, so much the better. It could get burnt by some of that power. I could definitely see Sal getting into one and hitting a 3-run homer that kind of ruins the Glasnow play. It's worse on the FanDuel slate at 10,000, but I think I'm going to take my shots and find out. Not sure what he's owned like, but I think there's definite upside there. Underdog tweeted Banks. Yeah, that was what I saw before. Fanatic says, I never thought the Reds would be this expensive. Dude, they've been killing it. They're even their social media people are doing a good job right now. Their tweet after the loss last night was, turns out the Reds aren't going to win 96 in a row or whatever it would have been to end the season, which I thought was a good way to put it after the loss. Let's see. Never thought the Reds would be this good. Hey, the Reds have been a historically good ball club over time. There's Big Red Machine and all those years. There's a lot to like about the Reds as a franchise. So we were talking Glasnow. Big time enthusiasm for Glasnow. Maybe a couple hedge shots with the top end of the Royals, where all the power lives, like the Prado, Witt, Sal, MJ part of the lineup. But looking at that bottom end, like somebody mentioned, the Drew Waters, Samad Taylor, Dayron Blanco, those guys aren't going to help turn this lineup over, particularly not against a pitcher like Glasnow. So he gets a bump from that weak bottom end. Garcia and Olivares are fine. They're, moderately capable major leaguers with a little bit of power, a little bit of speed, okay hit tools. But Glasnow's not going to have much issue with those guys. They don't walk a lot. They strike out, or at least Garcia strikes out at a league average rate. They walk at 8% and 5%. And then that bottom end, he should just have the ability to plow through that. So on the idea that that will limit the plate appearances at the top, I really don't need all that many hedge stacks of the Royals. They could hit a few home runs today. They could draw a few walks and hit a few home runs and put up a semi-bent score, give you like 7 and maybe a few DFS relevant scores. But I don't know. I prefer the Glasnow side. And then the Rays, going up against Daniel Lynch. I don't think he's completely inept on the mound, but right now he's kind of pitching like it. 30 and a third over 5 starts, 17.5% on the strikeouts, 4.45 ERA, 5.11 on the xFIP. Giving up a little bit of power with a 3.97 home runs. I think I'm going Rays here. Don't really see the need to go to Lynch, 65-74. The price is right for that pitcher in this spot. He projects okay, as you can see, just based on some history of finding some strikeouts. But yeah, do we want to mess with the best team in baseball or one of them? I don't really think so. So Yandy Diaz, Wander Franco, Harold Ramirez hitting third, Randy Rosarena, Isaac Paredes, Manny Margot, Taylor Walls, Christian Bethancourt, Jose Siri. Dynamite lineup. Have we talked about the fact that Paredes means walls in Spanish, by the way? So they've got two guys in this lineup whose last name is Walls. I think that's interesting. Everybody in this lineup except for Bethancourt has a WRC plus over the waterline. Everybody's got power. Everybody's got at least a little bit of speed. Maybe not Yandy, but Yandy hits for so much average, gets on base like crazy, hits some home runs. I just love this lineup from top to bottom. It's not the greatest version when you get the Manny Margot version of it in, but even he's 4% above average for run creation. Walls had a good start, has come back to earth dramatically, 7 homers, 16 stolen bases, 3% above average creating runs, 213, 318, 386. Jose Siri at the bottom of the lineup, 13 home runs, 7 stolen bases, and 174. Siri makes for a dynamite wraparound play. You can put him in front of Diaz, Franco, Ramirez, Arozarena. It's just a very dynamic lineup. The weak point is probably the 6, 7, 8 in this version, but Bethancourt's a good catcher, in terms of the contact profile, 47.5% hard hits, 10% barrels. So there's a lot of upside with Christian Bethancourt there as well. Margot and Walls kind of the weaker points, but they performed well this year. So top to bottom for the Rays, no real interest in Daniel Lynch. Tons of interest in Glasnow. Minor shares of the top of the Royals, but probably not. That's one that probably falls by the wayside when everything sorts out. All right, 2 to go. The slate starts in about an hour on FanDuel. We got to get moving. This one, we probably got lineups for this as well. We got Marlins lineup anyway. No Jorge Soler in the Marlins lineup. Kind of eliminates most of my interest in the Marlins. We saw Arias go deep for a home run yesterday. And a little bit of a surprise for the people out there who say he only hits for average. He does. He's hitting 401. He's got 3 home runs on the season now. A 162 WRC plus. Just love Luis Arias. He's so good. Slap hitter, and I don't care. Creates runs like crazy. Puts the ball in play like crazy. But with no Soler to support him, that kind of sucks. Garrett Cooper certainly not the home run hitter that Soler is. A little bit of pop from the right side. He's very cheap. So if you wanted to continue the thought of like Arias and whoever gives you upside, fine. So be it. But, really, without Soler there, that dings this lineup quite a bit. De La Cruz and Sanchez are both good players. Gurriel used to be a good player, won a batting title 2 years ago, and then fell off the face of the earth. The hit tools come back a little bit this year, 264, 316, 393, but he's kind of just playing out the thread. Old Cuban gentleman playing out the thread in Miami. Not a total surprise there. So loves Yuli, but maybe on his way to becoming like a manager or something, or a hitting coach or something like that. Not a great DFS option at this point. John Birdie put up something from that wraparound play that we talked about yesterday. It wasn't slate relevant, but I at least saw him on the scoreboard, so that was nice after I spent probably 3 minutes talking about using him as a wraparound play yesterday. A lot less effective from the 6 spot. He should be either in the 1 or the 9 spot to provide value here. Bottom end is fairly weak for the Marlins. They're going up against Johan Oviedo. I think particularly with no Soler, there's probably upside here for Oviedo. He hasn't been bad. 4.30 ERA, 4.60 xFIP is a little bit weak, but okay strikeout pitcher, 1 in 5, 10.9% swing. Should be able to find a few additional strikeouts, from time to time. Good at limiting power and home runs. Their best home run hitter isn't in the lineup. He costs 6,300 on DK. That's a good SP2 option. Probably won't be that popular. At price, I think that's a good option. It's not going to blow the doors off the slate, but if you just get that handful of strikeouts, book a win maybe, get a few innings pitched cleanly, I think there's upside there for Oviedo. I don't like it as much at the FanDuel price, but I think it's there. We've seen guys succeed at that price with just got 6 innings, got a quality start, struck out 5, and managed to pitch his way into relevance at price. So on a slate where there's a lot of $10,000 pitchers, I think he's in play at that 85. Pirates against Eury Perez, kind of an interesting spot here. They're actively talking about shutting Perez down before the All-Star break to buy back some innings. He's a rookie. He's just turned 20 at the start of this season, so they're kind of being precious about his arm. Justifiably so, probably. We've seen that go both ways over time, where like they manage it and then the kid blows out his arm anyway. There's a lot of just, coin flip going on, a lot of luck involved with these kids, but I understand what they're trying to do. He's been great, 27.8% strikeouts, a 4.07 ERA, xFIP rather, a 1.54 ERA. The xFIP is the more realistic number. I think we all know that. But he's been very, very good. I just worry that he's not going beyond 5. Like, with all the talk of shutting him down, why would they go out there and let him pitch 7 innings today? It just doesn't really click mentally with me. Like, if I'm chasing a narrative, that one kind of makes sense. He projects fairly well. I didn't have to cut it because he was projecting out to about that many innings anyway. It's just the price on FanDuel at 10-1, no real potential for a quality start, maybe some strikeouts, but the price is too high. 85, maybe you get there on DK, but I think there's better value options with the idea that they're going to short start him here. They haven't specifically said Eury's only getting 5 innings today, but just if you go from A to B, or you go from A to C, I think this short start today is your B along the way there. So tepid interest in a pitcher that I normally would like very much in this matchup. Even at that FanDuel price, I would have a lot of Eury Perez if I believed he had a shot at 6 innings and a quality start. I just don't think it's there. Anybody else have a different take on that out there? We don't have a ton of time to get into it, but I'd love to hear if anybody's got a different take or if anybody saw anything and read in the local Miami paper that, hey, we're going to give him 9 innings today and then we're going to shut him down. I'd love to know something like that. So if anybody's seeing anything, has a different thought, let me know in the chat there. Some minor interest in Pirates, but with no Brian Reynolds, it's really a downgraded lineup. It's McCutch, it's Sawinski, maybe some Brian Hayes, and then you're bolting on like the Carlos Santanas, the G1 Bays of the world. Henry Davis, their premium rookie. No catcher eligibility on DK. That kind of sucks. That's a pain in the ass. Catcher eligibility is still on FanDuel where it doesn't really matter. I like the player, but I don't think we need to go that deep with Pirates lineups today. They are still probably going to get Eury Perez for 4 or 5 innings, so that'll take the top off of the stack probably here. So limited interest on all sides in this one. Some Oviedo value, some minor shares of Marlins, maybe a few minor shares of Pirates. DK, a few shares of Eury would be okay as a dart throw. FanDuel, you're really throwing long darts at that quality start. Last game on deck. So I had Jesse Schultens as the projected opener, but it doesn't really matter. We're not going to take the time to switch it up. Any of these openers are going to give the Red Sox basically these same results, so it doesn't really matter. Version of the lineup for the Red Sox with Ref Snyder leading off kind of sucks. Bobby Dahlbeck in the lineup for Boston. Huzzah! Who do you guys think my highest owned player is going to be? It's not going to be Bobby Dahlbeck. But he is going to be in my lineups. I love Bobby Dahlbeck. He was raking in the minors, too. Great bat-on-ball skills. Great power. Great power. Comes great, strikeout rates with this player. But responsibility as well. Or actually, the way the line's supposed to be said, which it was in the most recent Spider-Man movies. With great power, there must also come great responsibility. They screwed it up in a lot of the Sony Spider-Man movies. None of that is relevant. What is relevant here is Cutter Crawford's kind of a good pitcher. 57-69, 24.6% strikeouts over 6 starts, 45 2/3 this year, 3.74 ERA, 3.76 on the xFIP. At price, even if we don't get a full start, I think there's a little bit of upside there as an SP2 on DK. Let me look at what the game log's been. He was going deeper the last time I checked. Yeah, 5 innings the last time out, 4 innings the start before that. Has been pitching in a hybrid role. Was a starter early, then they pulled him back to like long man, bulk relief type of performances. Had a few long performances out of the pen. I think we could reasonably expect 5 innings here. Went 5 in the last start at Minnesota, struck out 5, gave up 6 hits, shut them out over 5. I think you can get a similar kind of a start here from Crawford. 5 and change, handful of strikeouts, clean innings. At 57, that's a good price on DK. You can take shots on that on DK. Against the struggling White Sox lineup, they've got Luis Robert, they've got Eloy Jimenez, they've got Andrew Vaughn, Jake Berger maybe. Everybody else in that lineup has been struggling Benintendi is a non-threatening slap hitter who's not really coming through in that department. Tim Anderson's not even doing that at this point. He's just been bad this year. Lubob has been great. Eloy's been great when he's on the field. Andrew Vaughn is a good correlated scorer, not hitting for a ton of power. 12 homers. Well, he's pulled the power together a little bit, I guess. 12 homers, 10-2 on the barrels, 48.4% on the hard hits, 203 ISO. So good power from those three hitters. But then Grandal, Berger for the 17 home runs on the season. We know he's not a superstar. Gavin Sheets, Elvis Andrews. Elvis Andrews is terrible. There's enough to target there with Cutter Crawford at price. I don't love it on FanDuel just because I don't think we'll get that quality start. But 5 innings with a handful of strikeouts for 5,700 on DK as an SP2, there's value there. A few hedge stacks of White Sox. I'll grab some Timmy because I believe in the turn, especially 25 on FanDuel. 38 on DK is a good price as well. Benny, I think the hit tool is, 283 is fine, 347. I expect a little bit more batting average, a little bit more on base from him. And the correlated scoring just hasn't been there. Hasn't been stealing many bases at 9 stolen bases in 298 plate appearances. So it just hasn't been great for Benintendi. Some shares of Lubob, Eloy, and Vaughn as the primaries, and then bolt on the top 2 or somebody from the bottom. On the other side, the Red Sox, I hate Ref Snyder in that leadoff role, particularly, I guess might be a lefty to start the game. But what am I getting? 1 plate appearance on the good side of platoons from a career journeyman backup type player. Like Ref Snyder's not even one of these like quad A slugger types like a Rooker or a Berger or anybody. He's a journeyman utility man backup infielder outfielder type guy. They keep running him out there in these weird spots leading off. I know he's been effective against lefties, but yeah, I don't know. For DFS purposes, he might correlate. He might double score a run when Devers homers or whatever, but it's not great. Turner, Devers, Duvall, definite upside there. Yoshida, definite upside there. Bobby Dahlbeck at 2,600 still has shortstop eligibility and third base eligibility on DK. Getting him at shortstop is key over there. That's a great price for that hitter at shortstop. I know he's flawed. I know there are a ton of strikeouts, but there's also a ton of power. Bad season in a part-time role last year. 12 home runs and 353 plate appearances. Year before in a more full-time role, but not a totally full-time role. Dude hit 25 home runs, had a 254 ISO, 453 plate appearances, and lost his job. What the hell? Doesn't make sense to me. Kid knows how to draw a walk. He strikes out at an aggressive rate. He's basically Joey Gallo. Another hitter I like. For DFS purposes, especially at 2,000 dead minimum on FanDuel, when I'm not really sacrificing a first baseman on this lineup because Turner can play third, although then you have to do like third base and util, you can build it. Let's put it that way. Third base and shortstop, you don't have to sacrifice on this one because there's not a good shortstop in this lineup, so just plug him in at shortstop on DK. At 26, if you book that home run, we're in business. So I like the Red Sox lineup. 1 through 6, or 2 through 6 I like. I'll bolt on shares of Ref Snyder. The bottom of the lineup, not great with Arroyo Hernandez and Caleb Hamilton, but you can take mix and match shares if you get carried away with Red Sox. And I think it's justified to get to a fair amount of Red Sox. They're not carrying the highest projection in Vegas in terms of the run total, but they project fairly well on the model here. I like the upside in the bullpen game. What direction is the wind blowing in Chicago today? Looks like it's blowing somewhat out toward left field at according to Schmabs, 17 miles an hour. Holy shit. Yep. According to Roth, it's blowing out at 20 miles an hour out toward left field. So maybe a bump to bats in this one. I don't know that tempers my enthusiasm for the Cutter Crawford value play because it's a value play. So like you'll take what you get. If you play, like there's equal chance that he's going to blow up with wind or without wind, I think. So it doesn't really ding that, but maybe a little bump to bats, particularly for the Red Sox. I think that's it, gang. See what anybody said in the chat. Wind out to left slightly also. I'm not sure what game that was talking about. Shannon's in the chat. What's up, Shannon? The White Sox. Yeah, that's the White Sox we were just talking about. So, yeah, more than a little bit of wind blowing out to left, apparently. Stephen Leibowitz, yeah, I know it's Ref Snyder hits lefties, but yeah, he hits lefties, but he hits lefties still like an effective slap hitting platoon guy. It's like, you're not gaining like a big power bat against lefties or anything. He gets on base a little bit, he correlates a little bit when lefties are on the mound, so I get it. But yeah, don't love that. Let's see what else we got. Won the first bet of the day, Liberator under 14.5 outs. Nice. All right, we got to talk pitchers, and then I got to get out of here and build some lineups. I forgot this slate starts in less than 50 minutes. Weird board when Bailey Ober's at the top of it, but there we are. So FanDuel's got that play. Bailey Ober projecting at the top of the board. Think that's justified against the Tigers. Weak lineup. He's pulling a big-ish innings projection there, but I think he's got a shot at hitting it. 6 and change innings. Get me the quality start. Get me a win. Find me some Ks. Could go pop. Not a great pitcher, but an effective, good pitcher. Glasnow, great strikeout pitcher. Big-time upside. If we get 5-6 innings, I think we get a bunch of Ks. Could walk the world. Could give up a couple home runs. It's problematic, but I think the projection's very real. Corbin Burns, I think the projection's very real. The strikeouts are way down. He's been bad. He's been giving up too much contact. He's been not as effective as usual. There have been spots of depth. There have been spots of quality. He's got a great matchup against Cleveland. Not great for strikeout matchup, but great for clean innings matchup. I like the Corbin Burns play. I will probably temper it unless the field is at like 2%, in which case I'll push a little bit more. George Kirby, I believe in that projection. Going up against Baltimore. We've seen these pitchers succeed against Baltimore. They got Cedric Mullins back, though, yesterday. They got to Bryce Miller, who I also liked in this situation at a similar projection and a lower price. I like the price quite a bit on Kirby and on DK at 82. I wish he was a little cheaper on FanDuel, but I'll take my shots because I expect the ownership to be low. Evaldi, I talked about being a little bit concerned about short innings. I think the projection's real if we get the typical Evaldi on form, pitching with his velo, but losing some velocity on his pitches, and then that short start where they pulled him with the thought that something was wrong with him, that really concerns me. Situationally, Yankees lineup is shit, but the stadium is definitely plays for hitters, so not the best spot to play him. Highest priced pitcher on both slates, or on FanDuel anyway. All right, second highest priced pitcher on both slates, I think. I didn't see Garrett Cole's price all the way down there because he's all the way down there. So this part of the pool, I think everybody here's in play, outside of probably Daniel Lynch. Actually, I didn't mean to go that far down. This part of the pool, everybody 27 and up, Cole and up. Cole just has the matchup issue. That projection's probably a little bit low for who he is, but I didn't want to goose his innings or anything like that. And I feel like it's fair matchup wise to leave it where it is and where the model's seeing it. I didn't want to do anything with it, and I don't do that unless I see something really out of line. Like I said, the innings projection for Glasnow was a little out of line today, so I tamed that, but I don't put the thumb on the scale for other stuff. So I think that's realistic for Cole in this matchup with his struggles, but he's probably also got the highest ceiling of the day. A 60-point outing on FanDuel would not be out of the question for Garrett Cole if he's on form. If he's on form, he beats this Texas lineup, as good as they are. It's just a matter of whether you get him on the right day. Morton in Cincinnati, I think, could give you a good game despite that bandbox, despite the talent in that lineup and how they've been rolling. Savali, decent value play against Milwaukee. Plenty of strikeouts there for him. A little bit of power coming back. I like the Brewers' bats for value the other way, but I do think Savali's got value. Kikuchi, I'm scared as hell of the home runs and going to play some Athletics bats against him, but I think there's strikeout upside for price. I think he's in play. And then Jerry Perez, we talked about the potential limitations of innings. I think we're getting 5, and that's it from Perez today. So at price on FanDuel, I don't love it. At price on DK, I think you can get it. Where the hell is Wheeler? Oh, Wheeler's not sorted. I guess I didn't sort the board the last one. So Wheeler's up there too. He was lurking down the bottom because I had forgotten to sort the board. So Wheeler's another big part of the puzzle here. Projects right in line with all those other guys. I knew there was another pitcher I liked. I like Wheeler probably better than Burns. In line with Kirby. Better than Evaldi. So this order's basically right. I don't really trust Ober. I don't fully trust Glasnow, but I just love the strikeout upside there. In terms of like where trust and projection and price and everything merge, it's probably Wheeler. Out of like everybody. It's not a great matchup against the Mets, but he's a super talented guy who limits home runs and all. So I think that's about where to go. Yeah, Mamba, I'm with you. Thanks for mentioning Wheeler. That's what caught my eye and made me realize that he was not sorted properly here in the rankings. Trying to get that SP2 right. I tell you, this Oviedo play kind of stands out for an SP2 at 63. Savali at 77, I think, is fine. Kikuchi's your danger spot. Like, Kikuchi could give you a good strikeout game against that low-end A's lineup, hold them down at the price. But then if you go there and he gives up those 2 quick homers, you're in a lot of trouble. Cutter Crawford at 57 could get you there. But with that wind blowing out, there's another argument against him, and it's not like a high end guy. It's like this kid pitches fairly well, doesn't go deep into games, so you've got the question of depth. It's probably a 5-inning start for him, but the price is right. So maybe a couple SP2 options there. I don't know which one I like the best. Probably Oviedo without Soler in that lineup for 63. It's probably my guy for that SP2 spot. All right, King. That's it. Good luck out there. Somebody go win something. Oh, we had somebody in the chat put a little, was it Velo? Yeah, our guy Velo won a nice little $400 in a DK tournament last night and dropped it into the Discord. So congrats to him. And drop your screenshots. Love to see them. Shout me out if I don't care if you shout me out, right? I let me know. I want to see your success. I really don't care if you shout me out or anything. It helps. It's nice if you do, but I'm not looking for the kudos. I want to see you guys do well. Four prong digger. This is the last question. And then I really do have to go build lineups. Who do I like better, Wheeler or Kirby? Like I said, it's kind of Wheeler's the guy on which faith and belief and projection and everything kind of converge the most. But if you need that savings, particularly on DK, like it buys you $300 on Kirby on FanDuel, it buys you a little bit more on the DK slate. So I don't have any issues opting for Kirby over Wheeler there. I think the matchup is equivalent. The talent is, roughly similar. So I don't think you're making a mistake if you save $1,300 on DK and go to George Kirby over Wheeler. I like Wheeler that much better. Just in general, long track record, good pitcher. Strikeouts are up with him a little bit this year. But not a mistake to make that pivot, I don't think. With that, good luck, gang. Let's go build some lineups. We don't have much time. I'll see you.